whenever I've worked with someone individually on a goal they're trying to achieve for themselves, when we slow down and think about the long-term why, it's never stayed on themselves.
We're always others focused. We're all talk about be about others. Like that's just it all. I think we in the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry at Egg Harbor have kind of realized that ultimately everything comes down to that. It eventually always ends up being about others first. Welcome to another episode of the Morning Cup Podcast. Last week we were with you talking about healthy competition in the workplace, and this is going to be kind of a spin-off of that. We want to give you some tangible things that you can do to create healthy competition in the workspace. Because many times people hear competition, they're thinking that could lead to a negative culture. We at Egg Harbor, however, believe the complete opposite, and we believe celebrating your team's achievements, communicating things clearly, tracking things can really lead to that positive culture. So in this episode, we want to give you some tangible ways to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking about the very first company-wide contest I was involved in at Egg Harbor, and coincidentally, it was called March Madness. And I know tonight we're going to find out whether Michigan or UConn wins the national championship for March Madness. This will release a week later, so everyone will know, but you and I don't know as of this morning. But at Egg Harbor, it was a 4-week contest. And essentially, each week, every store had different items that they had an opportunity to upsell. And I remember thinking to myself, I was in Lake Forest at the time. I had never worked at another Egg Harbor. Mm-hmm. But I just felt this drive because my managers were talking about how much it would mean to them. And let's go out and beat Lincolnshire. Yeah. Or let's beat Libertyville. Those were the local stores. Or then the big dogs were Naperville. You know, everyone knew Naperville did the big sales in the company. And the managers would say, let's beat Naperville. And I was like, yeah, I do want to beat those stores. It was just so fun to realize everyone was going to see Lake Forest and see how we stacked up against the other stores. Yeah. And I wanted us to be number one. And you know, one of the weeks, the upselling item, I remember the team was a little bit nervous about how are we going to do this because it was our take-home items, meaning like small touch things you could take home, like our house-made poppy seed, our jam, our chicken salads. And some of the servers were even asking me because I was excited about it, you know, what are we going to say?
Yeah, how do we get people to buy that stuff?
Yeah, you know, they've already eaten their meal, so maybe they're not going to want more. But I got really excited and started thinking about, you know, as soon as I heard a cue, someone would say, I love your jam, or I love your poppy seed, or if they ordered the Door County salad, which, you know, at the time was our most popular lunch item, that was a chance to make them aware that they could take what they like at Egg Harbor and bring it home. Yep. And this started to build a new rapport with some customers because I quickly realized a bunch of people were really excited about the fact that they could have Egg Harbor food at home, and it kind of created this win-win-win. Mm-hmm. The first win was I was upselling, which was helping us win the contest. And also, when you're a server, a higher ticket means a chance for a bigger tip. Mm-hmm. The second thing was for the company, because that was helping our sales growth targets. But the third thing was actually creating a better service for the guest, because this is something that they didn't know that we offered that could actually, you know, be an enjoyable thing to take at home. So that was really fun to be a part of that competition. And, you know, as you and I talked about last time, Matt, if we really get a team going with competition, a few things can happen. One, it sparks creativity. Mm-hmm. So as I said, our team went from at first being a little bit like nervous about the contest into getting really creative. The second thing is building enthusiasm. As funny as it sounds now, I have vivid memories of selling, you know, a jar of jam and seeing the managers and the team members come up to me, and they were so pumped up about it over a jar of jam to go. Yeah. And we had our own score tracker, which we're going to talk about today. And it was very simple then. It was a marker board. Yeah. But just going up and making another tally and seeing where we were at for the day, it created this whole new level of energy and enthusiasm for what we were doing. And, you know, for you and I, we want to really look at ways to implement competition into the culture, and we're going to do 3 ways. Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you, Matt. I know that every week you meet with all of your GMs. Mm-hmm. You do it virtually, and you have what's called an L10 meeting. Yep. And we call it an L10 meeting because we want it to be at a level 10, which essentially means afterwards, everyone who joined, if we ask them to rate, how good was this meeting today, 1 to 10, we're striving for a 10 every time. Yeah. this could maybe be an episode in the future that we do, talking about, how we take meetings from something that for most people is boring and bring life to them. But for you, in your L10s, you have a scorecard that you bring out. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about what is the response you've gotten from our general managers by having competition revolved around a scorecard everyone looks at every week.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing with a scorecard is identifying what those key what those key winning points are going to be for our GMs. Some of it could be based around maybe their bonus structure. Some of it could be based around just some key metrics of something we're pushing for the company, but really giving them those winning categories of, hey, if I'm doing my job as a GM, what does winning look like in my role? Yeah. And what that sparks is it's a visible scorecard for everybody to be able to see. So there's that accountability for each other. You have the opportunity to see how other stores are doing. We talked a little bit about comparisons, not drawing comparisons, but there's a difference between comparing yourself and being driven by seeing other people's successes. Yeah. And then it also gives them the opportunity to celebrate each other and be excited for each other. So I really love it for the self-accountability, for looking at yourself and not wanting to see a low mark when your peers are doing so well. But I also love it for the peer accountability of maybe encouraging each other to improve next week or celebrating each other's wins and giving that public praise. We really believe in public praise at Egg Harbor as well. It's an opportunity for some public praise. We don't really spend too much time on the reprimanding in that instance. It's more just everybody can see it. Everybody kind of knows it's there. But that opportunity to really, praise a GM for an incredible week or a great month.
Yeah. I think something you said is critical. You have to pick the right thing to track. Mm-hmm. And so that's an encouragement we have for our listeners, especially those that are leading a team or wanting to learn how to lead a team, is you can't put a heavy emphasis on everything. Mm-hmm. You'll get mediocre results if you're trying to say everything that we do is as equal importance. You have to pick out things for this season in your business that are most important and get it up there in a tracking system that works, either a digital tracker or a manual tracker that everyone has access to.
Yeah, and to us, our ideal guest experience is kind of our number one thing that we're thinking about. So what does a metric look like that's tangible, that tells us, other than just guests saying, hey, we had great service or anything like that, in person, but what ties to that? Okay, our secret shopper reports, what's happening when no one's looking, our review scores, like what is the public rating us consistently on a week-to-week basis. Mm-hmm. So finding those kinds of things that bring objectivity to the result that you're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. And we also wanted to just touch quickly on, if someone is listening and they're looking to bring competition into their personal life, this is also something we highly encourage, is that you get some type of an app tracker, something that will track the goal that you're going after. We talked last week, we gave the challenge to get a goal going. Get a tracker going so that you have that scorecard to look at so you can really measure where am I at. Mm-hmm. The second thing we wanted to talk about, you kind of touched on already, which is great. We've got to make the scorecard public. Mm-hmm. And, I think some people, when they hear how their performance is or how their team is performing is going to be public, they get nervous at first. But a healthy culture gets excited about it because we're going to celebrate the wins. Mm-hmm. It really drives people in the organization to know that others can see their results. And you want to have accountability. You already used that word. I think what's fun about accountability is if you're a high performer that is competitive and you're getting results, accountability means you're getting recognition for the great work that you're doing. Yeah. Something that can quickly, make people lose motivation is if a leader sets up a goal or something competitive, and then all of a sudden you work hard at it for a few days and you're like, is anyone even tracking this? Yeah. Is this even something that matters? Yeah. So the weekly scorecard that goes up or the daily scorecard that people sees guarantees people know we're taking this seriously. Yeah. I know, Matt, even for yourself at Egg Harbor, in your job, we look at what are some key performance indicators, call them KPIs, that you are directly accountable for. And I was curious, is that something that has helped, drive you competitively in a healthy way? Or have you ever had that experience where you're nervous about things being publicized to other people that, at the end of the day falls on you to get us results in our company?
Yeah, well, we talked about the weekly L10 meeting that we do with my district, and all districts in our company do those. But we also have then the scorecard that's in there, but we also have a scorecard that we release to the entire company that includes Georgia, Chicagoland West, Chicagoland North, and Chicagoland Central. And it has, I think it's 12 different metrics, and it's broken down by district. And you can see it at the end of each period that we do, each 28-day period. And to me, like it creates some self-accountability in terms of, okay, what is my district thriving in? How am I, as a district leader, contributing to that? Because ultimately, as you get higher up in leadership, you are reliant on the people that you oversee to bring the results. But as a leader, it's your job to set them up for success and make sure that those expectations are incredibly clear for everybody. And to me, I always see that scorecard and I self-analyze and I'm like, okay, what's an extra measure that we can put in there to make sure that our shoppers are consistent, that we have people that are giving the ideal guest experience day in and day out on the floor serving? What are some things that we can do to make sure these bad reviews are happening or aren't happening? Or how can we help identify when a bad review is coming to where we can flip it around and turn a 1-star review into a 5-star? So I'm always looking at those final period scorecards. And in our L10 that we do with district leaders, we track it weekly as well. So I'm always looking at that and thinking, okay, what is a new exercise, or what is a new tracking metric that I can put out there for our GMs so that in the future we see better results coming from this. And like you said, we don't call out the negative necessarily, but it's like the high performing leaders are going to be the ones that look at a metric and are like, okay, no, I can do better. And it has that internal fire inside of them where it just bothers them more than if somebody else even told them about it, right? Sure. You just automatically see that. And I mentioned a couple of the key performance indicators, but we also really believe in something called RPUC, which is average revenue per unique customer. That's a new one that we've had over the last couple of years, and continuing to drive that up. And the way we do that is by identifying our customers. So we talk about building regulars through the ideal guest experience, but the way to get regulars is to learn their names and be able to track how often they come and visit. Yep. So that is one of the things that we're really looking for, aside from the shopper reports, review scores, health inspection scores, all those kinds of things that we look at.
Yeah. So we talk about that on the public side within our company, and we also want to touch again on the personal side. If someone is listening, we really want to encourage you to get a personal scorecard that you make public to at least one person that you trust. Mm-hmm. And here's what's tricky about a personal scorecard. If you get an app that tracks what you're doing, then the app can't lie. Like maybe it's counting your steps. Yep. Well, however many steps you take, the app is going to sync that from your phone, and then it's there. And then you've got someone helping hold you accountable to that. They see, did you hit the goal or not? Yeah. But some scorecards, there's no app that's going to be able to track that. That's your own integrity, a willingness to be honest and put that down on paper or in that manual app, and then giving at least one person access who's going to hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. Again, for two reasons. One is if you're driving the results and getting the goal, you need someone coming behind you, giving you some praise, encouraging you, letting you know they believe you can get to the finish line. And secondly, if you're coming up short, someone who's going to get in there right away and ask you about that and figure out how we can get back on track. Yeah. So this, to me, connects whether it's in a business setting where you're leading a team or in your personal life. When you're trying to hit a competitive goal, you want to make it public to at least one person. Yeah. All right, the third thing that we're going to hit on today is that the goals have to be team-focused, and we have to make sure that everyone is a part of impacting the final result. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of looking into, what are ways that companies do this, and I was thinking about what Egg Harbor does. And something we've started to use a little bit is gamification.
Yeah.
So we take goals that we're going after in a competitive atmosphere, and we say, how can we make this fun and bring in some gamification? People love video games.
Yeah.
They love getting to the top of scoreboards and achieving and passing levels. And I was reading about this company called Clayton Homes. Clayton Homes is one of the top, companies in the world that builds the most homes in the U.S. And they started a healthy competition where they did a fantasy draft. It was kind of like fantasy football, but instead of drafting players, there was this big board of objectives that needed to be accomplished, and people started drafting what it was that they wanted to accomplish.
Oh, cool.
And it was really cool to read about because now, rather than a manager coming to you and saying, I need this from you, you took a lot of ownership because you said, I'm going to get those results. And they associated points with it. And it became this really fun thing where people were trying to have their team get the most points. But instead of fantasy football players, it was through, different objectives for the company.
Yeah.
I know you and I both like fantasy football,
really cool.
so
Yeah.
I kind of liked that
You've already kind of got my mind spinning on that a little bit about things we could do that in our stores. I wanted to kind of ask you a question, though, because we just talked about the personal part as well.
Yeah.
So what do you, that works for company goals or work goals, but what do you do when it's a personal goal and there's really not a lot of impact other than you making the impact on that goal?
Yeah, I think on the personal side, this is actually more important than even on the company side. You have to define why you're going after that goal.
Yeah.
So, we'll use a couple of examples, but maybe someone is really focused on a health kick and they're wanting to lose some weight or they're wanting to gain some muscle. Or maybe someone is trying to kick a habit that's unhealthy. They want to stop doing X because they feel like that's going to lead to a better life in the future. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, why is it that you're doing that? When I work with people at Egg Harbor, a lot of times for parents, it's for their kids. If it's getting healthier, it's because they start thinking about in 10, 15, 20 years, I've got the energy and I've got the health right now to play with my kids, but I don't want that to go away. Yeah. For other people, it could be from the leadership standpoint where they see themselves as a coach and as a mentor, and they want to be able to have their impact last for the long term. Mm-hmm. It could be as a spouse, for your husband or your wife, I need to make this change so that I'm going to have a healthy marriage so that we can stay together. Really taking the time to slow down and say, what's my why that's driving this and getting that down on paper, that connecting piece is ultimately going to lead to you not only achieving the goal, but having a lot of momentum behind it throughout because when you wake up and you don't feel like doing it, you can go back to your why. Yeah,
you're really making me think about that because any intrinsic motivated goal ultimately can still be brought back to like you're doing it for the betterment of others eventually, right? Like you could say I'm getting healthy for myself, but ultimately that could be for a future family, so you could be around longer. That could be to impact others for a longer, more consistent amount of time. It could be about just helping your mental health to be in the best place, but you're doing that for yourself, but you're also doing it because that impacts how you are to other people too. That's a really cool way to connect it.
Yeah, honestly, Matt, whenever I've worked with someone individually on a goal they're trying to achieve for themselves, when we slow down and think about the long-term why, it's never stayed on themselves.
Yeah, it's always other. We're always others focused. We're all talk about be about others. Like that's just it all. I think we in the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry at Egg Harbor have kind of realized that ultimately everything comes down to that. It eventually always ends up being about others first.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, we're going to segue into the company good news. And the last thing that I wanted to share with creating, goals and healthy competition for a culture, we talked about you got to bring everyone into it. And in our culture, every business model is different with the employees and what their needs are. But for us, this can include making sure we have things translated into Spanish and set up for success for, our team members that their first language is Spanish. That helps them understand better. And so we did that with our recent contest. This was in our second episode. We talked about the Wellness Warrior Challenge.
Yep.
So if you're listening and you want some motivation to get healthy, go back to episode 2. You could still do the challenge today. We are excited to announce that we had a company winner. So every single individual was competing, but then the stores were competing as well.
Yeah.
And the team that won was Barrington. So it's a big shout out to Barrington and that store. And, they ended up getting like a prize that they could choose.
Yep.
And I reached out to find out what they wanted. And I thought maybe they'd want to do like a team outing and go out and celebrate and get food and go bowling, or maybe bring in some catering food. But it's not what they wanted. They wanted custom t-shirts.
Cool.
They wanted t-shirts that they could wear while they're working, so they were on-brand t-shirts, but they kind of commemorated this challenge.
Okay.
And they just
I like
recently
it.
got those. And I have a picture of the Barrington team. Some of them are kind of, flexing because they're pretty excited about what they accomplished.
awesome.
But I reached out to their GM. Her name is Natalie.
Natalie, let me just say, is one of the most... I've never personally worked with Natalie in my district or anything like that, but everything I've ever heard or any competition we've ever done company-wide, her name is always up there, whether it's Barrington as a store or her as an individual. Like, you can tell that she gets so driven by competition. And Sam, their district leader up north, always tells me about just like the accountability that comes from that, like that their group has with each other, and because of people like Natalie that really bring that like competitive fire and competitive spirit in a positive way to everything that they do. So it was so cool to see them win, because I believe she told you like, we're gonna win it, and then they did, right?
Yeah, a couple weeks before the contest, I was talking to her and she basically guaranteed they were going to win. And I was almost cautioning her because I'm like, we got a lot of stores. That's a big thing to like, put your stamp on. But she didn't just talk the game. She
It's not
got
arrogance,
the result.
it's confidence.
Yep. So I reached out because I just wanted to hear a little bit from Natalie. There's the initial impact of a big competition and getting people energized and motivated in our company. But then I was also curious, what's like the long-term effect and how has the team responded since February? So here's a few things that she said. The first thing is that their store had so much fun with the contest. They used our value being all in, and they do this for every contest. So as you mentioned, she said every year when we do a Halloween costume contest, their team takes it so seriously and they always want to win that. So they sat down together as a group before the Wellness Warrior Challenge started, and they made sure that they were on the same page. She said, I wasn't expecting full participation from every single person on my staff, but the team decided to show up and do what they do best, come together to get a winning result.
So cool.
Here's a couple things from her team members. One person said, I didn't realize how many steps I was taking in a day, and I'm going to challenge myself now to keep doing this and continue hitting my goals. Another person said that they started seeing what the culinary core team members were accomplishing each day with their steps, with many of them getting between 25 to 30,000 steps in a day. And they said they're grateful to see how much endurance that those team members have. And it kind of changed their perspective. It almost raised the respect of coming in every day and realizing how hard these men and women work in the kitchen.
That's so cool.
The next person said that with these goals, they were able to push themselves through the usual excuses that hold them back. They said they also had a realization that working out for an hour of the day does not take away from their relaxation time in the evening, that you can have both. And here's my favorite quote. One of the employees said they started reading leadership materials during this competition, and because of this, they're now interested in learning more and getting involved in leadership in our company. And Barrington does a book club occasionally, and they said they want to make sure they come to the next book club.
That's so cool.
So, my closing thoughts on this company good news is that ultimately, we were able to put in a company-wide contest and see that many people not only got results in February, but are talking about changes that they've made in their life for the long term. Mm-hmm. And this made me think back to my very first day when I was in management, and that was at our store in Libertyville. And the manager before me, Matt Farrell, who's now the president of the company, handed me a clipboard and said, Carl, take care of the people, and the rest will take care of itself. And here it is about 14, 15 years later, getting a chance to do that contest and put a lot of time and effort into that, and seeing the long-term ROI we're getting through competition, it really feels like it's come true that we're doing things to try to take care of our people, and we're letting the rest take care of itself.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And shout out to Natalie and Team Barrington for all the effort and planning, and just I think about the culture in that store, and that team's just on fire right now. That's incredible.
Yep, and shout out to, we can't go through each individual team member, but we had hundreds of people get involved in this contest and take it seriously. And it was just so much fun to see. We talk about the scoreboards. We had a company-wide scoreboard and daily entry, seeing it light up and watching the metrics go up each day as people accomplish the different goals.
Yeah, amazing. We want to finish up with our Something to Sip On challenge. And last week, or the previous episode with the healthy competition in the workplace, we told everybody to identify a goal that they wanted to improve in an area of their life and create a competitive goal tied to that. And now we want you to take that competitive goal and do 3 things with it. Create a scorecard after you set up your goal. Make that scorecard public with someone by sharing it with an accountability partner. And then finally, spend some time defining what your why is and visualize what achieving that goal is going to mean for you and for others in the future.
Yep.
And with that, we hope you enjoy the rest of your morning cup.
And go this week and be a leader. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the content, please take a moment, set down your morning cup, and like and subscribe. And if you're feeling extra ambitious, go ahead and drop us a comment. We look forward to seeing you next time on The Morning Cup.